for our town hall on recreation in Jasper City Park. We'll get started in just a moment. If you'll just find a seat, please make sure that you sign in. We do have a sign-in sheet just as we do on our regular city council meetings. That helps us to know who is here with us, who is engaged, and who is helping shape our city. So we appreciate you signing in on that. All right, with that being said, my name is Kirk Ryfield. I am the mayor for the city of Jasper. I want to introduce a couple of people in the room with us this evening. Starting over here, I have Jim Looney, a council member, Ann Snavy, council member, Brandon Hanna, council member, and John Faust, council member. The back of the room, I have the city manager, Brandon Douglas, the assistant city manager, Kim Goldner, and city clerk, Lori Waters. So thank you for being here with us this evening. There are a couple of things I want to set forward going through the evening. Number one, we're all here for the same thing, same purpose. We want to do what's best for our city. We want to do what's best for our entire community. So just like our public hearings, we're going to time folks to 2 minutes. When you're speaking, try to keep it to 2 minutes if possible. Kimley Horn is actually with us this evening. We have two representatives. They're going to run the meeting. Your city administrators and staff are here just to listen. It's not necessarily for us to give our input. We want your input. And so that's important for us to remember as we go through this. If you can keep it to 2 minutes, there is a Q&A session at the end. For those of you that have children, maybe you can't stay the entire time. Kimley Horn will let you know how you can preemptively go ahead and participate in the activities around the room. So if you have any questions, ask away. And as long as you are polite and courteous about it, we'll have a good evening. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd really like to thank all of you guys for coming out tonight. It's really, it's a very interesting opportunity for us, but I hope it's really a great opportunity for y'all to think about how Jasper City Park can better serve the community. My name is Eric Bishop. I'm a landscape architect with Kimley Horn. With me I have Christy sitting over here. I'm going to go through a little bit of the agenda first. I like to keep presentations really short. No one wants to hear me talk. We want to hear from you. That's the purpose of this. So we're going to go through a process, a very short presentation. We're going to talk about what we've heard so far. That came out of a survey that was published by the city in December. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't know how many of y'all actually participated in that survey. 2, okay. So we're going to get better and more feedback this time too. So this is good. It's good to get additional input. We're going to talk about some of the analysis that we've seen on the site, some of the discussions we've had with the city, what we see as constraints and what we see as opportunities for the park itself. We're going to talk a little bit about some park activities that are not present out there at the moment. What we're going to do is ask you to get some we're going to get some feedback from you on some boards over here. We're also going to talk a little bit about design features. And then we have 2 concepts. They're not really fully cooked ideas because this is the beginning of the process. This is really almost like an instigation to get some feedback from you. See what you guys are interested in, see what you like, see what you don't like. To that end, I've got some of the images that we'll show tonight. Sitting up here on these tables, we're going to do red dots and gray dots on those. So if you like something, it's a green dot. If you don't like it, it's a red dot. The concepts, as they stand right now, are on the table middle of the room here. The idea with that is we've got some pens and some stick-it notes. Write your comments down, feedback on there as well. And then in the back of the room, I also have some analysis stuff. Again, that's got sticky notes and some pens. So there's going to be an opportunity to have a discussion back and forth. There's also going to be an opportunity, as Mr. Mayor mentioned, if you got to go, you can step out as soon as the presentation is complete and provide your feedback that way. I'm going to have to put my glasses on. I'm getting old. So these are the results of the survey that went out in December. We had about 76 respondents to the survey. Most people actually answered every single question, which was good. I don't know if you guys can see this. The text is really small. But all but one person had actually participated in the park, had been to the park, which is this first question here. The second question that was asked was really what features are in the park right now that you enjoy the most. The highest response here was trails for walking. The playground's got a lot of feedback as a positive. The dog park a little bit less. Tennis and pickleball, picnic area, and then other. There are a few items that I think came up where people provided additional feedback that I wanted to highlight a few of those things. And a lot of it really has to do with the pond itself and how people remember using the pond, how people would like to use the pond, and some of those items. So fishing, the water feature, fishing again, fishing the pond. A lot of that was a good bit of feedback as far as what people enjoy in the park right now. So the third question that we asked was really what would you like to see added to the park? And here we had a lot of respondents again talking about the walking trail, increasing the ability for that to kind of extend throughout the park, deal with some of the grade challenges, because I do know some of the population that's walking around the park. They're not as young and spry as many of us, not myself, but there were discussions around splash pad, pickleball, things like that. Some of the interesting items that came out of this were ideas around playgrounds and how to improve the playgrounds. So there were a lot of responses there. A lot of that had to do with the sandy playground, the toddler playground, trying to clean that up, looking for other opportunities for play areas. And then one of the things that we heard from the city, as well as some of the respondents, is really the feeling of safety of the park, and how do we make it feel more safe? How do we have the restrooms more accessible? How do we improve some of those conditions? So there's a question that we asked is there anything out there that you don't think we need? The bridge became one. There was a discussion around ball fields. A lot of that had to do with really the middle field, not the upper field. The upper field is pretty well maintained. The middle field is kind of going into a little bit of disrepair. The waterfall, got a lot of responses on that one. And then there are a few other things as you go through this. Lighting, trying to rework that. The restrooms came up, so again, there are some things that we can improve purely from a maintenance standpoint, trying to reallocate some of the uses of the park. And then the last question we had here was really about what do you want to do in a park? How do you want to spend your time? And what would make you want to come out there? And this is where the safety security side of things came up, making sure that there's more accessibility throughout the park, that it's well maintained and clean. Additional activities was something that came up. And then a little bit less was parking, although I've not seen the parking overly used too much. So what we did is we took our field observations, paired them with the survey, and did what is somewhat of an analysis. There's a few things on here that came from discussions with the city that I'd like to highlight that are not on the page. And again, these maps are all on the back. I know it's kind of hard to read. A lot of this was really dealing with the waterfall, some of the maintenance issues, that middle ball field, what happens there. In discussions that we had with the police department and the fire department, there was a strong desire to bring the access back, if you can see where my cursor is. The area that was cut off for the water feature. That's something from a public safety standpoint that we'd really like to incorporate in here. There were discussions around the big slope that's between the upper field and the middle field. And then really kind of the edge of the park itself. There's not sidewalks. We don't have a lot of ability to walk from surrounding areas to the park. And then from an opportunity standpoint, what we started to think about is, what are the elements that people said they really wanted more of within the survey? And again, this is the survey. We're getting more responses from y'all tonight to get these ideas. Exercise stations, pickleball courts came up. Splash pad was something that was of interest. Playgrounds that were more inclusive to a broader spectrum of children. Improving circulation and increasing walking paths. And then there are also some things that we noticed, which the concession building and restrooms, they're kind of located up here on the upper area. Seems like a good opportunity with infrastructure in place to be able to think about how we might use that building to support some other activities. We also looked a lot at the pond. We know it's not been dredged or cleaned out in a long time. The water flow coming into the pond itself is a little bit compromised. The wooded area between us and the edge of the park right now, there's a really deep ravine. So one of the things that we started looking at within the concepts themselves is how do we make that a better amenity? How do we kind of stretch that out through the park itself? So a few activities that kind of came up, and then some other ones that we sprinkled in. There were discussions within the survey about bicycle paths that were supportive for the elderly, as opposed to like mountain bikes and other things like that. Things that were not available within the community right now. This image down here is, I always get this wrong, it's silver spokes, not silver spikes. It's an interesting concept that's growing around North Georgia a little bit. We also looked at how we could utilize some of the slopes and some of the other areas along the park to integrate play that's a little bit more natural, a little bit more challenging for children. So that seemed like a really interesting opportunity. I tease a lot, there's a thing about nature play, it's what we used to call play when we were kids, but that's what they call it nowadays. The pond itself is something that really I think should be able to celebrate. There's some ideas we have around that. And then finally, some of the other things that we wanted to look at, especially as it pertains to kind of that middle ball field, was if we're not going to be able to use that, if we can't maintain it as a ball field, we can't preserve it, we don't have the recreation department to be able to manage that, what could that become? Could that become sort of a middle ground where we allow some of this natural area, we allow some of these additional play spaces, allow some other uses, and begin to actually make the water flow through the park a little bit better to support the pond itself. So I'm going to show you two concepts. Again, these are not fully cooked because at this point in time, we're going to ask you to provide more feedback. These were our first responses really to what we heard in the survey. So the idea here is we expand the dog area and pull the pickleball tennis out of the back of the site. Try to bring it forward into the site. Initially, we were looking here. I don't think that's necessarily, that's not set in stone, obviously. We're going to get some comments here. We do think that there's an interesting opportunity for picnic areas near the maintenance building, overlooking the middle field. There's some nice vistas. The idea of integrating play within the slope itself is something that we wanted to highlight here. The extension of the walking trail kind of throughout the park and around the edges was something that came up over and over again. And then again, just some idea of how we might be able to create a series of wetlands and a better conveyance system to support the pond itself and make that a healthier system. Now you'll see some similar thoughts within this. Here, one of the ideas that was kind of thrown about very early on was, in search for a site for a new city hall, is there an opportunity to really kind of explore, does that actually happen here? Do we think about a civic lawn, and do we think about the transition as we go kind of downgrade towards the pond of a series of learning gardens and other elements like that. Here we also wanted to focus more of the really highly active pieces right up against the parking lots, up against the street, getting them kind of out of the back of the woods so they feel a little bit safer. And then the idea as well of creating a more inclusive play area around nature. So with that, that is the extent of my presentation. Like I said, I don't want to bore you guys about things. What we really want to do is we want to get the feedback from y'all. And I'll say this before we start getting into a Q&A, if anyone does have to leave, we've got red dots and green dots over here to provide some input. The concepts over here in the middle of the room with sticky notes and pens, write your comments and thoughts on there, please. And the back, similar with the analysis components. So with that, I'll open it up. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the survey that was done in December. How was that put out to people?
That was out on social media and on our website, and it was shared through a number of other sites.
I don't recall seeing it. Okay.
I think the gentleman.
Yeah, how many other city parks have you investigated? And if so, what made them successful or not successful?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I've been designing parks for 25 years. What makes a park most successful in my mind is something that the community wants, ultimately. Having a variety of activities is important. And I will also say that in parks as in life, we don't ever always get everything we want. So what we try to do is we try to provide as many options as we possibly can to ensure that what the community wants out of a park, whether it's passive and kind of tucked away, or if it's highly active, those are things that we want to tease out.
So, how do you guys determine, after just only 70-something odd people did a survey, come up with this concept? We have, baseball fields that are actually using right now, pickleball courts or city halls or whatnot. How do you base all this off of 70-something odd people?
So it's a good question. This was our reaction to the survey. So tonight, we're hoping to get more feedback that allows us to take the next step forward. So what we're showing over here, we're calling concepts, they're not really concepts. They're really that reaction to the survey. We're going to come back with additional reactions based on feedback that we get tonight, deeper conversations with the city on some of their needs and some of the constraints that we do have within the community. So it's a great question. Those are not done. It's not a choice between those two. This is about getting feedback, supplementing the survey results that a lot of people do not participate in. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious again, how many people here filled out the survey? The show of hands.
It
One,
was survey.
Four people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
To add to her question, are you at liberty to tell us how many people responded to that survey?
It was 76 that responded to the survey.
76
Yes,
people?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there going to be maybe a follow-up survey?
I think what I tend to like to do coming out of an event, kind of a town hall like this, is for us to post what we heard back to the community. We can have a discussion with the city if it could make sense to have another opportunity at that point in time, as as the public becomes more aware of what the project could be, to get additional feedback and input.
It was in December, right? Is that when?
Yes, ma'am.
It might have been during the holidays. I didn't see it either. And I watched the page, so, sometimes when you're busy, you miss that stuff. I would have definitely participated had I known about it.
It was up for about a month.
In December?
Yeah. Well, it was towards the end of,
I'm just saying the holidays made interfere.
yeah, for sure. And then, there's those crazy Facebook, controlling who gets to see what. If you don't interact with the page,
Very true.
sometimes you don't see it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm Kyle Harrington. Thank you for your time. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I saw the survey. I did not respond to the survey because the one thing that was lacking on the survey was the biggest feature that's at that park, and that's those baseball fields. No question on that survey said, are you using the fields? Have you used the fields? Would you like to keep the fields? None of those questions were on the survey. I coach a 11U travel baseball team. We're based out of Pickens County. All my boys are Pickens County boys. We use that field 3 times a week. That's where we practice. I see the concepts. I'm in construction. I see what you're doing here. I know that takes a lot of time, a lot of imagination. But it seems like we're trying to reinvent the wheel here off of a response from 80 people. I can call the other travel ball teams that are here. We can get their parents together. I can double that number, and I guarantee every one of them will say, keep the ball fields. That's the staple. The duck pond, it's been the duck pond since I moved here in the 3rd grade. That's what everybody knows that park as. Hey, we're practicing baseball. We're over at the duck pond. Hey man, let's get that, let's bring that back to life. That's awesome. The lower field, I see you've got it wetland, meadow. The other drawing had it kind of the same way.
30 seconds, sir.
I'm sorry?
30 seconds.
It's not 2 minutes?
Yes, sir, I'm timed.
Okay, you just let me know.
Yeah.
I'll finish quick, I promise. Seems like we're wetland, meadowland, I'm assuming, because that's a low-lying area. You've got a lot of storm drainage, things like that. It seems like we could take some money and put back into the ball fields, make them what they once were, and get some good revenue off of it. The tournaments we play in, I know there's a gold mine tournament. The director of that tournament, it starts in Blue Ridge, L&J, and if we have these 2 fields right here, when we play those tournaments, we get about a 2-hour layover between games. And being 2 blocks away from Main Street, man, the people that would come. And you know, what you guys have pushed up there, the businesses that are up there, is awesome. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, thank you. Real quickly, thanks for the comments. And again, noted, please note them on paper as well, because we're going to take photographs, we're going to scan this, and we want to be able to put this back out to communicate. On the side of the wetlands, the only comment that I have is we have some pretty severe erosion that's happening between the woods and the side of that field. And in order to really correct that, we're going to have to look at how we change that channel a little bit. The upper field, I think that's something that's in great shape right now. If it's being used, we need to hear that. We need to understand it, understand the impacts. There could be some, again, not everyone gets everything they want. There could be, let's keep the upper field, let's rethink the middle field. So, yes, sir.
First of all, I didn't know there was only a 2-minute deal. I put 20 minutes worth of stuff in. Okay.
2 minutes at a time.
So I'm Ryan Full of the First Mountain City Baseball Association. Our organization, along with the other organizations you see here, have been maintaining these fields since February. We need these baseball fields. We have next level baseball, travel ball that we coach. This is how our organization is set up. The rec department does a great job of what they do here. They have over 600 kids participating in the organization. We are next level baseball. Just as all these young men that just got scholarships to these colleges recently, they all went through travel ball teams. I'm sure when you guys started this, these fields were not utilized. We have worked tirelessly on these fields, and I invite every one of you guys on the council and you, everybody in this room, to walk over with us right after this meeting. We have an 8- and 9-year-old team practicing right now, the Jasper Jays. They're represented here as well. To have these fields taken from us, we trust. These fields have been in this community for over 30 years. Once we started, Once we started this process in February, I had countless people stop at these fields and give us stories. This is my first home run here. This is where I used to play ball. I understand the deal with the pickleball, but there's lawsuits coming out from all the noise created by pickleball.
30 seconds.
And like I said, Councilman, this is for you. Please don't be, and Mr. Mayor, don't be the council and the mayor that took these fields away from these children. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is John Weaver, and I guess I'm representing the Jasper Jays, a lifelong resident of Pickens County. I would just like to mention, just to piggyback off what the other representatives of the ball teams would say, we don't need less fields, and we actually don't need the same amount of fields. We need more. I'm recently in the travel ball world, and I see what these cities are bringing and the economic impact it's having on their communities. And that large field down in the, I think you call it the middle field, which would be the proposed meadow wetland area, that could even be divided up potentially into 3 fields that could play more games and more tournaments to bring people to our community. This is an asset we have. Our rec department is an amazing rec department in Pickens County. They do everything they can, but they are busting at the seams. And it seems to me that we would be going back in time if we, in the year 2025, have less ball fields than we had in 1985. In a county that now is going to have 40,000 people, probably within the next 5 years. So I just don't think we would be meeting the needs of our citizens in City Jasper and Pickens County if we were to take away ball fields. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
You said earlier we don't have the ability to upkeep the fields in your spiel. I'm just curious to know why.
So from my understanding, and I don't know if Kim or someone
So
wants
sure,
to help me.
I'll speak on that. The city of Jasper does not have active rec department like the county does. So we have a public works department, we do not have a rec department itself. The way the county operates in their departments is structured a little different than the way the city operates. So the city's never had a recreation department, such as indoor facilities or anyone that's dedicated solely to recreation.
Can I
Yeah,
speak again?
sure. That's it.
This is gentleman right here.
If we cannot keep up a lower baseball field and a restroom, how can we keep all this up?
Yeah, exactly.
So part of the idea with any natural system is that it is a natural system and it tends to take care of itself. It's a lot less maintenance intensive. And that's one of the reasons that we propose that. Beyond that, there's an opportunity to improve stormwater going into the pond, as well as provide some opportunities that aren't really available. So that was the genesis of that proposal, and again, based on the survey. Yes, sir.
Like I said, we have been maintaining these fields since February. We actually came up with a schedule now to keep everything, fair for everyone, which is free. It didn't cost us a penny. I think it's $4 on getting some things laminated, normal on the field. We've got 100% bookage from Monday through Friday from 5:30 until dark. Of course, because people go dark because of the lights. And then Saturdays and Sundays, at least 4 hours a day on those fields. We even have a couple of birthday parties up there. So the community is responding to us as we are maintaining these fields, and it's a positive thing. To put this in the middle of the heart of Jasper, where these kids would play, and that's just travesty. So we can maintain, we want to partner with the city of Jasper to help maintain. We have all sorts of volunteers from all these teams willing to do that. We have certified electricians, we have certified plumbers, we have people in construction, we have people with dirt moving equipment. We have all these things. And we want to partner with Jasper because these are our fields, this is our community. Even though I'm not from Jasper, we're in Jasper all the time, eating, buying things, hardware stores, fuel, food, you name it. We're here just like everybody else in the county comes to Jasper. This isn't just a Jasper issue, this is a community issue.
Again, thank you, and I'll say that I hear every single thing you guys are saying. The maintenance that y'all have done on that upper field is phenomenal. It is night and day from when I was here in January. So you guys are doing a great job, and I'm certain that the city of Jasper is very appreciative of your efforts. Yes, sir.
Okay, the budget to maintain police or whatever the costs are involved, would that be, how would that be budgeted between the city of Jasper and Pickens County?
We have not gotten to that level. Maybe I should step back and just give you an idea of the process that we're on, kind of the journey that we're on together. We started with survey, some initial work. This is our first meeting to get in-person feedback. We're going to go back, respond to that with some different thoughts. Eventually, this will lead down a path of a master plan for the park. And one of the things that we're looking at as we're going through the process is where there are available grants that are out there to help start to fund some of these things. So once we get to a full master plan level, that's when you start to get into where are the public-private partnerships, where do we have opportunities for shared maintenance and management concerns and things of that nature. I'm going to take a question back here if you don't mind.
Just from talking to family that live in the area for a long time, I do see a lot of good issues brought up regarding safety, the bathrooms, things like that. I guess my biggest question to get a better understanding of everything is why was this proposed to begin with? Was it outcry from the community, or is there further planned development in the area that would be kind of more accommodated by a park of this nature being kind of there?
I can tell you a little bit about the history of it, or at least our involvement and kind of how we came to work on the project. There was a need to really take another look at the park. The failing boardwalk, the closing of the water feature, some of the maintenance issues that were happening within the context of the fields, that there was no reservation system for any of these things, and that there were people within the community that, much like baseball, we had folks from the pickleball side that were reaching out and saying they wanted additional spaces. So that was really how we got involved. If there's a deeper story, please, by all means, let me know.
So it's a really valid question. There you are. The way that this came about was, number one, through time, the community changes, and the needs will change with the community. The election cycle that took place when I was voted in as mayor, one thing we heard on the campaign trail a lot was, that park needs work. That park is not what it used to be. It has so much potential. So in the room, who here believes that park needs work? And that's why we're here today. So the good news is, I think there's just a community-wide attention that, hey, the city's listening. We want to invest and make that park something great, or revamp it to be something great, whatever that looks like. The survey, and again, we're not agreeing or disagreeing, we're here to listen. With the survey of 76 people, there are so many more thousands of people in our community than 76. We don't want to make a decision based on 76 people. And I'm going to use you, Shane, as an example. But the comments on social media will eat you alive. If I lay in bed at night and I look at, well, the city must just want druggies and homeless there. That is not my want. That is not their want. My 7-year-old goes to this park. And so we take it, I've met with the baseball group. I've met with the pickleball group. I've met with these folks. I hear the need. We're trying to do the best thing by using a professional group to come in and listen. And then say, okay, professionally, how do we go about, number one, getting the money for it? And then how do we actually execute it? I'm not a park builder, so none of us understand step by step how to go about securing the grants and funding for it, and then how to actually execute it. And I think you would agree that that's the right way to go about doing it, is to make sure that you're following every step of the process. So we got here basically, I wouldn't say outcry, but I would say a consistent vocalization from groups and individuals. Hey, that park needs help. When I go out and walk with my 7-year-old, we go to the playground, and I see the lighting there, or I see certain features there not working. Well, why is that? Why can't we make it better? Why can't we function the way we want to? Such as the maintenance building being secured, things being taken care of. Through time, it's just transition to what it is. Our goal is to transition it back to something great. So that's kind of how we got here. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So as far as grants, I've looked at the grants myself. There's several grants out there. We want municipalities and so on. I want to talk a bit about tournaments. So I've been approached by the RBI, as Kai was talking earlier, RBI tournaments. They do have this World Series coming up in 2 or 3 weeks that encompasses LJ and Blue Ridge, and they are excited. They want us to participate in it as well. Not only just for that event, but year round. The only time there's not any type of tournaments going around is in the month of December. From January, February on to December, there's tournaments. We can bring that here. And our the director of RBI said he had 18 in each field going all day long. Okay? $3,000 to $5,000 a day on concessions. That's not including gate fees. And also, those teams, they each have 10 to 15 players per. That's 10 to 15 families coming into this area, coming into downtown and visiting our restaurants, shops, and so on and so forth. We had a scrimmage game back in March with the team in Canton. It was on a Saturday. We had over 200 people here in this parking lot. Chattahoochee was having nothing going on. This parking lot was full. Their colors were red and white. When I left to go home, I went through downtown Jasper, there's a lot of red and white in this town, walking around and going to these shops. They have it in ball ground. They actually extend their hours in ball ground to these tournaments because there's so many people. There's overlap in these games, 2 or 3 hours overlap, like Kyle was saying. They're going to go eat, they're going to go to your restaurants, your bars, your distilleries, your Walmarts, everything. It's just an influx of people coming in at the tax
So I raised my kids here too, and they play ball. And being in major construction engineering projects for 20 plus years, the city of Jasper and Pickens County would save millions if they did not do that. And I mean millions. If we revamped the baseball fields and we took the slope and you built a wall, you could put multiple fields on the bottom. The part where it says tennis and dog park, where there is an old playground there now, could be the pickleball courts. And the pickleball group could get what they want. The baseball group could get what they want. The flow of water in through that ditch can be controlled within that area between the college and the fields. There's plenty of room in there to do all that and not make the wetland meadow area. And it would be more cost saving to do that and get both groups happy and then come up with a way to keep both facilities up. Because then we're going to be having both groups that want good stuff at both places. We have been hearing, or I've been hearing, trouble with the rec department not being able to use the fields. I don't know if that's true.
It's not the case.
Well, they just stopped using them. So travel ball's using it, and now all of a sudden we've been told that they're going to tear out the dugouts. And we hear homeless is the problem. I pulled open records at the police station, and there's only been one problem at the fields.
30 seconds.
So I'm just saying that I think we could get both groups get what they want and still save the city of Jasper millions, because the water and the drainage of what you're doing right there is going to be the most cost out of everything for building that project.
Thank you. Yes.
I grew up in the county. When I was these kids' age, I played city league baseball. It was better than the recreation baseball. We played ball ground, Macedonia, free home. And y'all may know the answer to this question, but back then everything was taken care of. I don't know what's changed, but I'd love to see it get back to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna reinforce something that he was just saying, like, was there consideration? I would completely reinforce what he said, that was there consideration around, there being common ground around including a baseball field as well as some of the other amenities? Does it have to be an all or nothing, equation?
No, and I don't mean to interrupt, but you're exactly right. What our role is in developing a master plan is trying to balance your needs, balance your needs, balance the needs of people that may not be coming to these meetings and try to find ways to reach them. So, what we're talking about is a community asset, a public space that should be used and available to the public. So that is the balance that we have to strike every single day.
Yeah, and in terms of like a few people mentioned, but in terms of increasing the engagement with the survey, a lot of small towns just fighting apathy. So a lot of times it's about more going to the community to fill out the survey rather than expecting them to see it on social or to fill out the forms, or just anything that can be done to cross-pollinate with other nonprofit groups, or just kind of taking the survey more to the people to get a bigger sampling size, because that was pretty eye-opening if only 70-something people filled it out. And just the last comment, has there been any consideration when there's a park like this, did you just look at kind of the perimeter? If the goal is to create a more walkable community, how do we integrate and connect with the residential, the small businesses, and the commercial, bike lanes and golf carts and trailheads to funnel people in to actually use the park? Or if it's being underutilized, what does that look like as part of the master plan? So I would just encourage you to think beyond just the park and how we can connect and become a more walkable community with those residential, the houses and the small businesses that need the support.
Yeah, ultimately the master plan will contemplate how we actually connect the park better to the rest of the community. There's actually a grant available. It's not right now, it's in the fall, so you guys need to be aware of this. It's called Safe Streets for All, and what it does is it actually creates a funding mechanism for creating sidewalks where none exist. And that's what we have along the entire edge of the park. You can't really walk unless you're walking through a parking lot, across streets without crosswalks, other things like that. So even to the point of, if we viewed the park entirely through an economic development lens in baseball, we have to provide those connections. So again, these are all great points, and those are things that come into the master plan in the future. Yes, ma'am.
I grew up going to ball fields. I played softball, but they shared with baseball. And one of the things I bought recently, I'm from Cobb County, my mom's from Blue Ridge. I think that this area is my home because we came up there so much. But as a single female who has dogs, who loves to take her dogs places, I'm not a big fan of dog parks because people come, I'm not saying we shouldn't have one, I'm not saying that. But I think as long as you can walk your dogs on a leash around the area, I think that would satisfy that. And as a single female, I always timed my visits to the ballpark when there were games because I felt safe and it felt like my childhood. It felt homey, and that's one reason I bought back off of Squaw Valley and back there, because I liked the park and just the hometown feel. Where I grew up in Cobb County, when they started pulling the ball fields out, it got full of crime. I'm just saying that happened in Douglas County and in Cobb County, Lithia Springs, and also Mapleton, which is where I grew up. And that was one of the appeals, was like, baseball is American. That needs to stay. I know other things need to happen too. I agree, and I think what he said about incorporating pickleball, which is real popular, I don't know much about it, would be good because up there, there's a lot of areas to work around. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Hey, my name is Brandon Moss. I'm with the First Mountain City Baseball Association. I am a Pickens County native. I've been in this county for a long time. Got 3 kids that all attend public school here in Pickens County and all play sports in Pickens County. We utilize baseball fields twice a week. I spend a majority of my free time at baseball fields, whether it be here in Pickens County or elsewhere. Very interested in maintaining the fields that we have and have been doing so since January. We believe that the potential to grow
the fields that we have and maintain the fields that we have in partnership with the city is something that can be a good thing. As a lot of people in this county are well aware, the city's parks, especially here at Jasper City Park, was maintained by a volunteer organization for a long time. And it worked well for a long time. And we'd like to see something like that again. But that, pickleball, we know is growing. We don't think that should be discredited. We think that there's plenty of room in this acreage for both. And as I understand right now, we already have a couple of tennis courts that have been lined for pickleball. And like I say, we're there often. And pickleballers aren't. So I don't know what the interest is in pickleball and if it's as great as maybe what the city understands. But what I see from raising kids in this county is there's a great interest in baseball. And I don't think that there's ever not going to be. Like she said, it's a very American sport. And it brings kids and families to the city of Jasper. And ultimately, that's what these parks are for, right? Is to bring people here. And if we're interested in turning this place into something that people want, I mean, it seems to me that this baseball field is not what people want. It seems to me anyway.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So I have a couple questions, and I would hope that I could get a reply back from some of the council. So one is, was this sent through engineering and come up with a base price for what this cost would be for that, or is this all just architectural that's been proposed so far? The second question would be, we were told that our dugouts were going to be tore out for multiple different reasons. I'd like to know those reasons. And I would also like to know where the funds are coming from for tearing those down, because we keep hearing that there's no funds to do anything on the fields. And so if there's money to tear down the dugouts, why can we not allocate that money to maybe help or offset the cost of these guys who are putting in all of their time and hard work and personal money to keep these fields up for our kids?
First question.
So to answer the first question, once we get through a master plan, as we get more feedback, and we start to really hone in on kind of what the program, what the needs of the community are, that's when we start getting into costs and begin to associate this X plan costs this amount of money. We don't have that. Where can we get funding? What pieces can we begin to assemble? And are there opportunities for partnerships from conservancies or users and things like that to balance out the rest? So that becomes part of the process. Again, we're just taking the first step right now. This is the beginning of the journey for all of us. So it will come. It'll be part of the process.
So to answer your second question, the easiest way to keep bad activity away is to have good activity present. And I think we would all agree with that, whether it's pickleball, baseball. We've had other groups come to us, hey, dog parks. We've had other groups come to us, outdoor volleyball courts. We've had a lot of folks hit us as the city with ideas. So our goal is good activity to keep the bad activity away. Unfortunately, bad activity is occurring in certain locations. Our city's experiencing things that we've not historically experienced with individuals in our community, whether they're from here or not from here. The safety aspect is one. Our police and fire recognize the inability to respond to or patrol certain areas effectively and efficiently. Those dugouts are one of those areas. Secondly, as far as the cost, our public works crews, there'd be no cost for that. That's simply them on staff taking care of something that they have deemed unsafe. So the structure, how it's built, and what it actually has right now, we wouldn't build that back the same way today because it doesn't meet code, it's not in the standard. You mix that with bad activity and a failing structure, then we're starting to remove pieces that we want to protect people from. That's not saying that something wouldn't go back to place. When we were talking to certain individuals in other areas, other communities, a dugout today is fenced in, but it's not sunken. It doesn't have a full roof over it. Some are different. So looking at those, the cost is zero. That's our staff that's already on city payroll. So that's the reasoning behind why we're looking at removing certain features is based on safety and, being deemed unsafe.
Why does the public records not indicate that you're having problems there with the police department?
So the police department's not the ones making a report every time. If our public works go out to clean up vandalism or go to clean up what's been left behind or to go fix what's been broken or to go fix what's falling apart again, there aren't going to be statistics on that from our police department. But that's a good question. We're not getting, and I'll say, we're not getting a daily call of, hey, there's a problem there. That's not. But what we want to do is keep it from ever getting to that point. We want it to be as safe as possible.
Cameras would be more cost effective than tearing it down.
Well, again, it's unsafe, the nature that it's in now. And that's part of removing the structure that's not up to code the way it is today. So, there you go.
This young lady here.
Mine would be more directed towards the council and mayor. But I guess my biggest question is, I know the park how it is now, and there is vandalism on the picnic tables. The bathrooms can sometimes be very dirty. Lights, things like that. If the baseball fields, if we're not able to upkeep what we have now, what can make you feel ensured that we'll be able to upkeep something like this? I mean, I understand, there are natural things, but if we can't upkeep a baseball field, how can we upkeep a pickleball field? Or another, the tennis field, the play areas, a new bathroom? We want these things to be clean, we want them to be safe, but if we can't do that now, what makes me feel like we can do that then?
So another good question. It's valid. The answer to you earlier was we don't have that recreation staff in place. That's not to say that we wouldn't have dedicated individuals in the future. I'll use North Wigington, Lee Newton, and City Park Hall as an example. Those are our three major parks. When we're looking at revitalizing those areas, we have to think into the next budget cycle and 10 years down the road and 20 of how are we going to sustain it. If you look at North Wigington, there are no public restrooms in North Wigington right now. It's porta potty. That is not the plan for 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. What we're trying to do is replicate what has been successful and sustainable. So everyone's familiar with bathrooms in downtown that are coming. They will be here shortly. Those are pre-fab individual restrooms that are built somewhere else and shipped to us and then put in place. If that turns out to be successful and sustainable, they can be bought in singular pods or multi-pods. So our idea is, in areas like that, if we have it in downtown, it works, it's successful, certain security aspects, such as auto-locking doors. So at a certain time at night, and it's electronically controlled by our department heads and our administration, hey, we know at 7 o'clock at night you can get out, but you can't go back in. Staff's then going to go at 8 o'clock to clean the bathrooms, check them. So we're trying to operate more efficiently using technology, but that's not to say that staff won't still be present. This evergreen conversation about, hey, what is the park going to be? What's it going to look like? It's not an all or nothing. And that was a really good question earlier. The upper field's in completely different shape than the lower field. The lower field and upper field are in completely different shape than the pond is, which is a retention pond. That's in a different shape than the tennis courts, than the dog park. So everything, while it's all in the same area, it has to be looked at together and independently. So when we talk about the park being completely revamped, we then as a city, the administration would be tasked with, okay, now you have this master plan in place from feedbacking. We found the compromise, kind of the right area where we want to be. Here are the features that we've landed on based on the engagement from the public. How do we keep it safe and clean for everyone to use going forward? Because that's a problem. If that park were to be revitalized today and just shiny and brand new and open, we would have to scramble and say, okay, who's in staff, who's on place, who's going to take care of it? That's part of this master plan is as we're having this conversation, the administration is being held to a standard of, okay, now we've got to find staffing to take care of it, to make sure it's maintained. That's a really good question though, because historically what's happened is you put a Band-Aid over it, and then a year or two later we'd be having the same conversation. Hey, it's deteriorated again, it's gone downhill. Our goal is to not have the same conversation in 5 years and say, hey, look, we put all the money in the park, now we're right back in the same spot. The dugouts are bad again. No, we want to do it differently. So, good question. I would think once we get through the master plan and we're in that portion, the administration would probably have suggestions for the elected how to reorganize our staffing and then dedicate them towards parks.
Yes, sir.
Hey, first of all, thank you for this meeting. I'm Bob Coleman. I'm a pickleball player, USA pickleball ambassador, district brand ambassador for North Georgia. cover about 26 counties in the North Georgia area. Pickleball is exploding. That's not new news to everybody. Years ago, when it came on the scene here in Pickens County, Jasper Park was one of the few facilities that we had to play on. And it was very vibrant at that time. The park was being utilized, the water features worked, there were young families out, people were walking, enjoying the park, the playgrounds and so forth, and there was a lot of pickleball activity. We were using the park late in the evenings because of people who worked during the day. They weren't able to get out in the morning hours, and my wife and I and some others would offer free beginners clinics at the park there, and we had great success with that. As time went on, though, the lights began to go out. We had some skateboarders that would come in and use the tennis pickleball facility. The fence became in disarray and kind of torn up. As the lights went out, it's difficult to see. The courts are very dirty now. And to the gentleman's point earlier, there's not a lot of activity that happens on the court right now. You can go out there if you wanted to play tennis, and within just a few minutes, the ball is almost black because the court is just so dirty. So if you were to just revitalize that area, get it well lit, get it freshly resurfaced, repainted, and that kind of thing, there's no doubt in my mind that you could bring that activity back out there to the park. Pickleball has been around since 1965, but it's only exploded in the last maybe 10 or 12 years. There's a myth out there that it's for old people like me. Now, that's true. There's a lot of older aging people, which are here in our Jasper area, that enjoy the sport, but the sport is changing. More and more young people are starting to play pickleball. 2 years ago in January, out in Indian Wells, California, I watched a 10-year-old pickleball player beat a 22-year-old tennis player in pickleball for a medal out there. Now, there's no other sport where you could put a 10-year-old or pit a 10-year-old against a 22-year-old and have the 10-year-old come out on top. That's one of the unique attractions about pickleball. We have a gentleman that plays at the rec center. He's 90 years old. So for us who are aging, man, he's an inspiration for us. We actually do what we call a senior spectacular for aging pickleball players. We have 52, 70, and 80-year-old players come together, play pickleball for several hours, and then go out and enjoy lunch, fellowship, and that kind of thing. So pickleball is a great sport with a lot of health benefits, social benefits, and that's why I've fallen in love with it. I would love to have a facility, a better facility here in Jasper, to just get that kick started again. Right now we play at the rec center. If you go on to a website called Pickleheads, you'll see that Big Tree, which is where I live, we have a facility for pickleball. Big Canoe has a facility for pickleball, but Jasper does not have. Pickens County does, but Jasper does not have. We're the only city up the 515 corridor that doesn't have a public facility for pickleball. These other cities and counties have it, and they're thriving. Thank you.
Move back here real quickly.
It's important to the baseball field, like what y'all are saying is y'all can coexist, and I think I'm hearing that probably happen, but a thought comes into my mind, isn't there a way to maybe monetize, like this tournament you're talking about, the tournaments they're talking about? As a citizen, I'm like, I'd swing $2 or $3 to come see that. Like, is there a way to get money for these events? You know, that's a thought in my mind. Where, and then connecting, I like to connect in the trails to where, like what Woodstock has done, what Canton's trying to do, where people like to walk. They want to park and they want to visit shops, they want to eat, catch a ball game, watch a pickleball tournament, whatever, you know, or walk their dogs. That's me. I like to take my dogs out, give them some fresh air. So monetizing might be an option somehow. It's just, you know.
So the one thing I'll say on monetizing, historically, the way ordinances are set up around parks, it's difficult. You can actually change ordinances to make that happen. There are opportunities actually even to look at conservancies and other kind of private side or almost like steward sorts of groups, and as I'm understanding, that's how the park used to be maintained in many ways. So there are ways to consider that. I do think from an economic development standpoint, there are a lot of things that we've talked about in the conversation this evening, which I think are actually pretty interesting and valid points that will become part of this exploration. Right here, sir. Yes, sir.
I think the main thing the baseball community is trying to say is, these fields, we have been to fields in worse condition than these and played on. All the fields really need is fresh dirt, the grass cut, and a way to sell concessions. And the revenue can basically sustain the whole park. I mean, that's all we're trying to say. They're not in that bad of a condition. Yeah, they hold a little water, the lower field does, but with fresh dirt on it, it'll be just fine.
In all honesty, I played right field in high school, and right field is always wet.
Yep.
I have no idea why that is, but I never got out of a game where I wasn't just covered with mud. So. Yes, sir.
So, I'm glad you were talking about what you did. On all these two scenarios, the pickleball courts that they are giving you, the area is not that big.
Right.
Would you, as a pickleball player, think that the room where the tennis, the dogs, and the rest of the woods there would be a much larger area for the pickleball courts? And the baseball fields could
And
be
it'd be
there.
lit. That area is dark.
The plus to that, you've got young kids, right here, my kids, that are gonna be exposed to pickleball, learn a new sport, and it's all in one facility. Baseball gets what they want, pickleball gets what they want, City of Jasper gets what they're wanting, and we're bringing double the amount of people to the city and to these parks. That's more revenue, that's more exposure, more tournaments, pickleball tournaments, baseball tournaments. You know, the designs that are proposed here, just to me, as being in the construction field for so long, are not economic, not for the city of Jasper. You can spend that money that you're gonna get to make the fields better, or even more fields on the lower part, and the pickleball courts, and make that park 5 times what it is now, with less money.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to say that I'm an 81-year-old pickleball player, and I first learned to play on the courts, which the city of Jasper kindly drew lines so that we have 4 pickleball courts over there. But now, like Bob said, we can't play over there. The court is so dirty. But if it was revitalized, that would be great to have 4 courts going. Because at the rec center, most days, at most, we have 3 courts. One day last week, we had like 37 players there. And 1 court only accommodates, so we had 3 courts, 12 people playing, a bunch of people waiting to play. But if the courts were revitalized, which wouldn't take that much money, I don't think, we would be happy with the start to get 4 more pickleball courts go out back. So,
Yes, sir.
Revitalize football courts, revitalize the baseball field, we're all with the same thing, we're all going to coexist. But we have to have our baseball fields and softball fields, so they don't use both for our children. We go out of town to these tournaments, and we travel an hour and a half to open those. The other coaches and umpires, where you guys from, Jasper, Georgia, they know what that's at. I've yet to have one person that say, yeah, I know what that's at. If we open these things up and have people come in here, other teams, other communities come in here, we'll get put on the map, and these people actually come to our city. Also, baseball, to me, it's a touchstone. It's not just physical, it's mental. These kids are getting exposed to other communities, other cultures, and we see these kids in these environments talking to the other teams and playing the other teams between games and things like this. So we need these not just for the monetary value and economic reasons. We're teaching these kids how to win and lose with compassion, how to win, be humble. a lot of life lessons learned in baseball and softball. That's most of the convenience sport, it's convenience sport, right? So these fields, we just need these things revitalized. And as far as taking care of these fields, we have been doing this for months now. We can partner with the city, just like JYSA used to do. We can get money coming in with sponsorships, fundraising drives, so on and so forth. This is doable. As I look at these concepts, especially this here, I don't see a lot for kids. City Park is basically the only park in Jasper that has anything for the kids to do. These other parks really don't. And this here does not look like a lot for kids as well, except for our baseball fields, and it's a shame that there are not any baseball fields near either of the concepts.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, athletic facilities create a lot of straight lines, and a lot of the concepts up here, especially like playgrounds, play areas, dog parks, things like that, don't need to be straight lines. And including with the walking area, it would be a lot easy. It would be very easy to kind of use the other features like playgrounds and dog parks to almost like accentuate the pond, the baseball fields, pickleball courts, especially in the northern part of the park where it looks like it's mostly underutilized. But being able to actually create a flow that actually moves through the park, especially when there's people with kids that have baseball games or people with, that have kids at baseball games, have dogs, being able to have them and have like a playground next to the ball field for the little kids to play while, the parents are watching their other kid play, or have a dog play while being able to watch their kid and stuff like that. I feel like that would be a way to get more of the accessibility, the walking, the biking, and everything like that, while also bringing people into and around all of the fields rather than just kind of going and like changing the entire thing.
Yes.
So it appears that either way you cut it, this would be very expensive. Likely involving the next SPLOST, something of that nature, grants that take time. We're talking maybe even a decade. So what I'm hearing from a lot of folks is, the pickleball courts are in bad shape or the lights don't work. It may be time for the city council to start thinking about full-time staff members dedicated to our parks. We have diverse parks. We have Doris Wigington, which is a very unique park that allows nature. And this park could be more towards like for the kids and recreation. And it may be time, and it may be more budget friendly to have 2 or 3 employees that are full-time dedicated to the park, their own site, so we don't have to worry so much, at least 5 days a week, about security issues. It may be time to finally explore that. Our city has grown. I think I heard on the radio the other day on WLJA that we're at 5,000 people in the corporate city limits of Jasper. Once upon a time, that was never even a thought of a possibility. And 40,000 for the county. As we move to 50, 60, I think we're going to have to kind of change the way we've always done things. And I understand the way things used to be, but in the future, a dedicated staff, taking a lot of this burden off the city council's back, I think could really help you guys out. Thank you.
Just as a point of clarification, we keep saying the pickleball courts. There are no pickleball courts. We are playing pickleball. Yeah, we're borrowing space on the basketball, which we're super proud to have. We're borrowing space on the rundown tennis courts, but we're the only county that doesn't have set up. So I imagine going into a parking lot. You could play baseball on a parking lot, but you wouldn't want to because it's not the space designed for baseball. We're homeless. I mean, we are, and so I think that's just sort of being glossed over, that the pickleball courts do not exist in Pickens County. So I'm proud as anything to see that they're on the concept, but we're on borrowed land right now, and we would love to be able to have some pickleball courts and a place to play.
If I may, real quick, right before we up to you for the next question or input, it's important to remember, and Brian's here from the County Rec Department, as a community, our goal is to offer a multitude of services in the best and most efficient and effective manner we can. Working with the county, as recently as yesterday, having conversations with the commission chairman, there are pickleball courts being planned for development and building out later this year. There's a new pool that's been on the books for later this year or next year. Those things are happening, but the common thread both groups would have is there's not enough baseball fields and there's not any pickleball courts or enough pickleball courts for what you're needing. So trying to offer complementary services for our citizens. Doris Wigington's a great example. Ms. Kim Golder on the other side of the room, the assistant city manager was a large part of creating the idea behind mountain bike trails, a skills area to get kids outdoors. I think all of us would agree kids need to be outdoors more. So as a city, we've kind of taken a stance of how do we keep kids outside? How do we get them out there and get them dirty, get them to play? That's part of it. But offering complementary services versus competitive, what we don't want to do is invest, and you spoke of this, John Lucas, if it's millions of dollars on the county and it's millions of dollars on the city, we're both building the same thing, it's a failure if it's not warranted. So we want to balance that and strike a balance of, okay, it's warranted and it's needed. We may do 10% and the county does the other, or maybe vice versa, whatever that opportunity is.
I was just going to say, I didn't feel comfortable making a suggestion earlier, not knowing much about pickleball. I Googled it, it looks really cool. Maybe integrating instead of separate, and this may not be cool, but could the pickleball and the tennis court area be merged? Make a bigger area instead of too smaller. That's one of the things.
So again, as part of the process, as we advance and start working our way towards a master plan, instead of seeing yellow bubbles and blue bubbles and green bubbles, we start to get shapes of things. We have these conversations that we're having now. We figure out the program that effectively can be balanced on the site and can be served. Those things take the appropriate shape. And then we can figure out where the puzzle pieces fit. And there's another thing to keep in mind, because a lot of what I'm hearing is active park, active park, active park, which may be the case. There may also be other people who might desire a little bit more passive area. And one of the things that we try to do as we look at use, if we've got something that's more of a nighttime use like pickleball, that actually has a complementary use to baseball in many ways, where if you're practicing during the week, midweek, something like that, maybe you're not doing tournaments here, you're traveling somewhere else, then you start to share parking. You can start to allow that infrastructure to serve multiple uses and get the things that generate a lot of activity kind of clustered together in balance, and then you can allow portions of the park to become a little bit more passive. So if I want to go out, take a stroll, sit on a bench, read a book, I can do that. So again, as we go through the process of master planning, gathering all this information from y'all, that's where we start to take the big bubbles and turn them into real things and figure out how they actually fit on the site best. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Keith Ray, and I'm the Director of Conservation for the Southeastern Trust of Parks and Land, and I've been involved in a lot of park builds in recent years. We have 17 privately owned and publicly owned parks across the Southeast, and number one, I applaud a lot of the components I'm seeing. I came here because my kids play baseball. We're huge users of the park. We fish all summer long and make great use of this park as best we can. I do want to applaud you, though, in a couple of things I have seen in your idea boards, and that was the design of hillside play structures and integrating those as nature play. We talk about saving money and using space effectively. Those are amazing structures that, once installed correctly, require very little maintenance. So it's not like trying to mow a vertical hillside. And so it's a great use of space. It also is another attraction for this park. And I think that there's some compromise to be made, because with that middle field, if you shorten that field or bring it closer to the road, get away from that property line, you can put some of your restoration stuff in there. You may shrink the size of the field slightly, which might be a compromise that's tough to swallow. But you can get some of that nature wetland native area in the middle. I also happen to be an aquatic biologist, so this plays into my forte as well. And dredging that pond and getting plants restored around that pond to make it a more stable area that that's more friendly to people to visit. Putting different kind of platform structures on there would maybe benefit our community a lot, and also benefit the health of the pond and the fish population that we want to see grow.
Yeah, to that point, by deepening the amount of turnover, summertime especially, you can minimize fish kills. Planting the edges to keep the geese from getting in there, and we all know the geese are really mean for some reason. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I visit, or try to visit, because I like to walk in the park. I visit Gibbs Garden a lot and walk through it. I love to see Gibbs Garden meets the baseball field and the soccer field. Something really integrated where you have walking trails, lots of plants, picnic areas kind of eat together, and parking integrated with a baseball and a soccer field, and that's like baseball and pickleball, and walking trails going all through a pond with aquatic features. Things like that, maybe a bridge over it, things like that.
And that will be part of the conversation, how we balance things out, how we take the feedback that we're getting from y'all and begin to integrate it into the master plan itself. Does anyone, if anyone wasn't comfortable speaking and would rather just provide comments privately, and if you were comfortable speaking and you want to reinforce the things you said, by all means, please. We've got red dots and green dots over here. Things you don't like are red, things you do like are green. Post-it notes, provide some notes on the plans and drawings themselves, please. Because it is as good as this conversation was for us to listen to and understand from this constituency, beyond the constituency that we heard within a survey. We got to be able to record these in a little bit more detail as well. So if you please, if you got the time, jot down the notes.
So with that, just a moment. When we get to this portion, there are about 30 of you in the room. And so if you had the survey plus you guys, we're about 100 people out of 5,000. And so we are wanting more feedback. The second thing is to the players sitting here, thank you. You guys have been quiet, you've been attentive. This is what your local government should look like, right? Your parents and your family should be able to come and voice their opinion. It's an active conversation, everyone gets along, and it's a compromise. So thank you all for being here. Please partake in the stations that they have, come up and ask questions and continue the conversation. We have the room until about 8, so we need to make sure about 8 o'clock that we're checking out.
Can I say something? I would also invite anybody in the room, the council and the mayor. We actually have 2 teams that are actually practicing ball at this time. I would love for you guys to walk over there and have a conversation with the field and see what they're doing over there.
I want to hit back on the dugouts because I don't understand exactly why they're getting tore down. I don't know if that's the first part of the process that the council is trying to do to push a certain agenda, because for 22 years now, I've held unrestricted electrical license, HVAC license, utility contractor license. At one time, I was going to go into business for myself. And I work for probably one of the largest electrical contractors in the state of Georgia. And we build stuff downtown. We build nuclear plants. We build a lot of big facilities. Code changes every 3 years on every trade. So when you say that they're not up to code and you got to tear them down, if that's what we're going about, we might as well run a bulldozer through the city of Jasper, because every building is not up to code. A year after a building has been built, it is not up to code. Those codes change all the time. So I still would like, if we're going to spend money to tear down the dugouts, why not let's make them better instead of tearing them down? There's no point in spending money to tear them down when, if it needs a new piece of wood to support a piece, or fencing across the open dugouts. We've played tournaments in Blue Ridge or RBI at dugouts that have the bench at the front where the kids are all leaning over it. It's not that much money to build build a fence in the front, and if we've already paying the county people to tear it down,
We're not paying the county people, it would be city staff.
city
going out there
staff,
to take care of it.
so that money's,
They're already on payroll, sir.
So-
That's a conversation, I get your point.
so we
Those-
tear it down, where's all the debris go? Where does the trucks
That's
go?
it. Okay,
You know.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm the mayor, these are council members. That's a staff question. That's not something that I would have the direct knowledge of. But when I'm dealing with the professional staff that's put in place by the city to tell us what we need to do on certain items that are unsafe and deemed unsafe, we're going to listen to our professional staff to an extent, and also the professionals that we bring in. So we can disagree on it, but let's definitely discuss it with some of our professionals here that have made that recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of things that could be done besides the dugouts. I think the dugouts would be the least of my worries with things that I've seen in and around Jasper and just odds and ends.
Sure.
I think that would be low on the totem pole, is tearing out the kids' dugouts for these kids not to have somewhere to get when they're playing baseball.
Sure. So before we get over to the stations, I just want to say again, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out and taking the time. Whether we agree or disagree on certain things, it's important that we have the engagement, we're able to have the conversations. So thank you for taking the time during your week, come out here with the kiddos and do this with us. We greatly appreciate it.
One final thing before we break up. If you have not signed in, if you've not provided your name and information on the sign sheet, please do, because that allows us to stay in touch. And once again, thank you guys for coming out. I think it's been a great dialogue or discussion for me to hear, and it is definitely going to play its way into the process as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you.